Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're unpacking a real flight of fantasy. We're talking about one of the most romantic yet literally devastating stories to come straight from the heart of Arunachal Pradesh. Today, we're exploring the Legend of Ita Fort. It's this incredible tale of absolute power, forgotten identities, a mother's stark warning, and a tragic destiny that just unfolds across the stunning landscape. So what tragic secret actually lies hidden in the stones of Arunachal Pradesh's Ita Fort? I mean, this fort sits right at the very heart of Itanagar, our modern capital city. But beneath all those ancient weathered bricks, there's a narrative so incredibly dark and sweeping, it genuinely rivals the Shakespearean tragedy. We're gonna retrace the steps of this mystery today and figure out exactly what went down on that hill.
And you know what's really fascinating? Even though we're diving into a myth, it's firmly grounded in actual historical scholarship. The story we're decoding today comes straight out of writings by L.N. Chakravarty in his Glimpses of Early History of Arunachal Law, as well as the works of Sir Edward Gate. So we aren't just talking about some floating fairy tale here. This is deeply tethered to the very real stones and rivers of Itanagar.
Right, let's set the stage. Our story kicks off in ancient times with this figure named Mayamata. He was a refugee king who came over from Assam looking for a secure new stronghold for his people. And he found it on Ita, where he built the massive, formidable Ita Fort. He also had a beautiful queen by his side. Together, they were basically building this incredible legacy, a completely safe haven high up in the hills. But, as you might guess, that perfect, secure family unit doesn't stay intact for very long. For reasons that are kind of lost to history, the pregnant queen decides she absolutely has to leave the safety of the fortress, so she travels all the way down from the hills and into the plains. And there, right on the sweeping banks of the Brahmaputra River, she gives birth to a son. She names him Aryamata. This physical splits, the father isolated up in the fortified hill, the mother and newborn son down in the plains. This is what sets the entire tragedy into motion. As she's raising young Prince Aryamata down in the plains, she gives him this one specific, absolutely unbending rule. She tells him, do not venture to the north. She warns him that his ancestors lived up there. And guys, this wasn't just a casual piece of advice, it was a strict directive to stay far away from the hills of his heritage. But, well, if you know anything about historical legends, a warning exactly like this is pretty much a 100% guarantee of future disaster. Now, what's really interesting here is how Aryamata just thrives, despite the total mystery of his origins and these strict borders placed on his life. He doesn't just grow up, he grows into a truly formidable leader. Fast forward many years, and he becomes this great king, ruling over a massive area of the plains with immense power and authority. Basically, he becomes a conqueror, a man who is completely used to getting exactly what he wants, exactly when he wants it. But, you know, ambition definitely has a way of blinding us to the past. Word eventually reaches King Aryamata that there's another ruler, some unknown king living way up in the north. Yep, the exact direction he was strictly forbidden to go. Driven by that classic conqueror spirit, he decides he simply must defeat this northern king. That childhood warning from his mother, completely overshadowed by his intense, burning desire for total territorial dominance. The historical texts actually trace a super specific path for his military advance. Aryamata gathers his troops and begins the long march north. First up, they move upstream along the Dikrong River. From there, he pushes his forces even further upstream along the Papupani River. Finally, they hit this critical choke point, the junction of the Tahaja and Leper streams. And from right there, he can actually look up and see the people gathered on Itasa Hill. But then, he hits a literal brick wall. He absolutely cannot advance because the massive heavy doors of Ita Fort are firmly locked shut against him. His initial force, just not enough to breach it. It's this incredibly tense standoff. Now, a normal person might take this as a sign to turn back, maybe finally listen to his mom. But Aryamata is incredibly stubborn. Instead of giving up, he retreats back to the plains just to collect even more troops. His determination to break this northern king is absolute. So he returns. With a massive, reinforced army, he launches a brutal, full-scale re-attack on Ita Fort. And it is a grueling, grueling battle. But finally, through just sheer force of numbers and willpower, his troops managed to smash right through those impenetrable doors. They fled in, and they captured the stronghold. The mighty defenses have completely fallen. Now we reach the absolute pinnacle of the siege. Aryamata personally goes after the refugee king.
He draws his bow, unleashes his arrows right at his rival, fully intending to strike him down and claim total victory. But something completely inexplicable happens. His arrows just magically failed to kill the king. The standard weapons of war are completely useless here. So now, the two kings are face to face in the heart of the conquered fort, locked in this bizarre, unbreakable stalemate. And in that breathless, super tense moment, the defeated refugee king just looks right at the victorious Ermantha and delivers this chilling instruction: "Thou shalt not be able to kill me unless thou pierce my heart with thy fingers." I mean, wow. It is a deeply visceral, incredibly unsettling demand. He is literally offering up the secret to his own horrific execution. Compelled by the sheer heat of the battle, and honestly the strange magic of the moment, Aramata does exactly as he's told. He plunges his bare hands forward and literally pierces the older king's heart. It's such a brutal, shockingly intimate way to kill your enemy. And in the process of this grim act, Aramata's entire body becomes completely smeared and soaked in the blood pouring out from the king's pierced heart. But here comes the true horror, unfolding right in the conquered king's final breaths. As the life literally drains out of him, the refugee king, King Mayamata, looks up at the man who just killed him and drops an earth-shattering bombshell. He tells Aramata that he is his father. Suddenly, that vague, confusing warning his mother gave him all those years ago on the plains, it makes terrifying, absolute, perfect sense. Instantly, the sweet taste of victory turns to pure ash. Upon hearing those words, Aramata is just utterly crushed by this profound, unimaginable sorrow. The horrifying realization of patricide, the murder of his own father, completely washes over him. He finally remembers his mother's advice not to venture north. But obviously, it is way too late. The exact thing she desperately tried to prevent has happened, by his own bloody hands. Desperate, he tries to find some way, any way, to repent. This intense, crushing guilt quickly builds into a desperate quest for atonement. He tries to just shed the sheer weight of his sins through material sacrifice, giving away massive amounts of presents. Then, he takes vast quantities of precious jewels, gold, and silver articles and physically hides them deep within the Guruchientia hills. It's almost as if he's trying to literally bury his own corrupted wealth just to buy back a piece of his soul. And what's completely fascinating for us today is that those hidden articles, they are still supposed to be lying out there. This immense, forgotten treasure of a heartbroken patricide king. But because of the dark, deeply sorrowful history attached to it, many people consider the Guruchientia Hills to be absolutely cursed and haunted to this day. The physical landscape itself is just forever scarred by the memory of this horrific event. Unable to find a single shred of peace in the hills, Aramata runs back to the plains, going back to the exact place of his birthright on the banks of the Brahmaputra River. He plunges himself into the water, desperately bathing, trying everything to wash his father's blood from his body. But no matter what he does, the stains will not fully fade. The physical blood acts as this permanent, indelible marker of his deep spiritual guilt. Which brings us to the tragic, incredibly full-circle arc of his life. Born on the banks of the Brahmaputra, rising up to become this wildly powerful king of the plains, committing the ultimate sin of patricide by conquering Ita Fort, and finally, his death. Finding that the mighty river absolutely cannot wash away his sins, he seeks out his mother's guidance one last time. And on her advice, the very same woman who tried to save him from this fate in the first place, Aryamata covers his blood-stained body in oil, sets it alight, and burns himself to ashes. And that leaves us with a lingering, powerful question to wrap up our explainer today. Does the blood of the patricide king still haunts the stones and rivers of Arunachal Pradesh today? When you visit the capital city of Itanagar and stand right there before Ita Fort, you really aren't just looking at ancient architecture. You are looking at the site of an epic, multi-generational tragedy. It's a truly haunting piece of geography that just invites us to look a little closer. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this deep dive into the legend has given you a whole new appreciation for the incredible history hidden right beneath our feet.